This is the final reflection video for Organizational Behavior Business 440, where I've got 10 organizational behavior concepts from the class and the book that I have chosen that will be um, most important for my future career to either implement or just understand. So starting off at number 10, and so we're going reverse order, uh, counterfactual thinking. That was in chapter 1. This concept I found interesting because the idea is seeing things as they have been or developing multiple different explanations for what happened. And I guess I just never heard of that before, and it's just the idea of being able to see things from multiple perspectives and multiple perspectives all having truth to them. So there's not always one right answer, sometimes there's multiple right answers. All right, and then number 9 is the difference between successful and effective managers. And that was in chapter 2. Successful managers are managers that get promoted more often, and effective managers are managers that have satisfied or satisfied subordinates producing good organizational results. And I guess that's important to me because I want a good mix of both. I want to be an effective manager and a successful manager. Because successful managers, effective managers who are not successful are probably unhappy with their position towards the end of their career. But successful managers who are not effective are not um, appreciated by the rest of, or not liked by the rest of the organization who works below them. All right, number 8 is similarity attraction bias, and that's in chapter 3. Which means to perceive more favorably those who are similar to themselves. I think just about everybody does this. Um, you see as a little kid, you're like, I want to be like that person, probably because that person looked like you, and you see yourself in them. That's the idea, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Um, there can be negative implications of this. It could be you promoted somebody because of this factor. You see yourself in them and you want to see them succeed. And that could have negative impacts on other employees, right? So, all right, number 7 is social proofing and social information processing. And that's in chapter 7. So, social proofing is building an understanding of how things really work in an organization by asking other employees. So instead of the formal rules or the how things are written, you kind of just pick it up from the culture of the other people. And social information processing is the idea that so much work is ambiguous for employees, so they develop their own perceptions and beliefs from those around them, which is similar to the idea of groupthink, which I'm not mentioning that concept, I'm just saying it's a similar idea where um, both of these um, in my future, and I've experienced it before, but uh, sometimes you have to learn uh, outside of the rule book, you know? You show up and you don't know what you're doing initially, and it's kind of unspoken rules of the workplace. That's what I'm getting from this. And you have to be, as a manager, you have to be aware of these unspoken rules that employees probably don't tell you about or that you'll have to work through when you enter a workplace. And then number 6 is expectancy theory, which is in chapter 5. Victor Vroom says expectancy theory is an employee's motivation that comes from their analysis of what performance they can expect from their results, what the costs and benefits will be from their efforts, and how much they personally like or dislike the particular costs and benefits. So this one for me, um, I think goes back to what employees want. Uh, as an employee and as I probably will have employees in the future, I need to recognize that they are going to have different motivations, and these motivations go back to what they expect they can get from their actions in the workplace. What are they looking to get? Are they looking to get a promotion? Are they looking to make friends? Are they looking to just get done with their workday? You know, that's what's motivating their actions, and what how much value do they place on these certain motivators. So, and then number five is malicious obedience, and that was covered in chapter five. And malicious obedience, I love the wording of that because it's kind of counterintuitive, and that's what the definition is, which is following rules thoroughly as an attempt to produce poor organizational performance. So in the future, if I find somebody who's being um, maliciously obedient, that that probably means that they're trying to get attention or probably exploit or expose the rule book that they are forced to follow, you know? If they're not breaking any rules, but somehow they're harming the organization, that means that something needs to change, probably. So that's my perception of that. And then performance paradox is number four, but covered in chapter number five again. Chapter five is a long chapter. Performance paradox is the idea that all measurement systems decay over time. Because this was not word for word, but this is my um, uh, wording of this is that people either improve or are removed. And that's why performance measures for old the past generation does not work for the new generation, you know? A different amount of work can be done, a different types of work can be done. When you look at sports, you know, in golf, uh, tee boxes keep having to be moved back because uh, new generations can drive the ball further, you know? Um, the three-point line in basketball in the professional leagues it started the same as the high school line, but it had to be moved back because of high performance. It's the same goes for businesses. So you have to, but I think you still have to take a look and uh, not respect, what's the word? Appreciate the performances that would have been acceptable in previous generations, even if they need to get to the current level. Employees need to get a little bit to the modern performance levels. All right, and then number three is emotional labor, and that was covered in chapter four. And that is the job requirement to display particular emotions, whether they are actually felt or not. I think this one kind of goes for myself. Um, it's something I probably need to look at in workplace culture when I'm looking for a job more than anything, and seeing how that, or if I'm in an organization, I need to recognize, as in a managerial role, I need to recognize the cultural impacts of emotional labor on the employees. Where, because I'm not somebody who wears a smile all the time, and um, I need to, and if I'm in an organization that is very consumer friendly and I need to be smiling, that's going to put a big toll uh, on my work. Um, there's going to be emotional labor, right? And that applies for employees and managers. Then number two is managing with distributive, procedural, and interactional justice. And these concepts are covered in chapter 6. So distributive justice is defined as fair distribution of assignments, incentives, or promotions. Procedural justice is despite the distribution outcomes, uh, a, there is acknowledgement that there is a fair procedure to determine those decisions. And then interactional justice is the belief that employees are being treated with respect and consideration, no matter what decisions are made. And I think those three are really big for um, leading a team and getting people to, uh, I don't want to say like you, but employees getting the respect of those who work beneath you or alongside you. You need to treat everybody, you need to make all your decisions, you need to, uh, what am I looking for? You need to uh, clarify everything, right? You need to make sure there's a reason for every action, every decision. And that way, you can't be perceived as, you can't be perceived with any biases or anything like that that can harm your career or your reputation. And then number one is what managers do. And that isn't really a concept, more is covered in chapter two, but it's just the idea that managers cover hundreds of different types of tasks each day, and there's always more information to gather, people to consult, problems to fix. And the idea that there can be role overload, which is another concept covered in chapter two that kind of rolls into it, or burnout, which is covered in chapter seven, but they're kind of the same thing that I'm thinking about, is that uh, um, I sometimes lose view of what am I going to be doing when I become a manager, right? And you need to think managers do everything. Managers are doing everything and doing all the little tasks every day, and their work never stops. So that's what I need to keep telling myself. And that's why it's number one. All right, that's it.